Let's do this. Part 2 of my top 10 Arnold Schwarzenegger movies list. Now, number 5 on my list is Conan, the Destroyer. Yes, there are 2 Conan movies, and this one is number 5, The Destroyer. It's still action-packed, really cool. A little more comedy in this one, though. His sidekick is definitely comic relief. Definitely a comic relief kind of character. Of course, the wizard that he meets in the first movie comes up as well. And it's nice that they actually talk about what happened in the first movie. They reference it. No, forget about that. Anyways, they reference stuff that happened in the first movie. They talk about wanting... Conan talks about how he wants her back. If you want to know who I'm talking about, I'll get to that in a minute. And the people that we meet are pretty interesting. Conan's group that he goes with on this adventure. And it's nice and concise. It's not overly complicated. You know what you're going to get. It's an action movie, and not to mention it's got some good characters, and I enjoy it. And even has Wilt Chamberlain and uncredited, and he's in the movie but he's not credited in it, Andre the Giant. Yeah, so there's some really cool scenes in this movie as well where he fights the mirror monster, as I'm going to call him, and when he fights the final monster as well. Nice action sequences. I'm not going to give away too much of the movie in case you want to go watch it. So, yeah, check it out. But even though I do like this movie, it doesn't beat out my number 4, which is Conan the Barbarian. Now, one of the reasons why this one is better to me is, first of all, it has James Earl Jones, alright? I may really like Andre the Giant, even though he's not credited in the other movie, but it's James Earl Jones, man. This guy's got an awesome voice, and you can really just believe that this guy is a cult leader, which is what he plays in this movie. You just listen to him and say, yeah, I can see a lot of people following this man, but just by the power of his voice, it's really good, and you get to see, it's an origin story, yes, but it's a good origin story, and it's not Conan doing the narration. It's his chronicler, who we meet later on in this movie. And also the crew he has in this one is very small, which I think gives it more of an identity, and each person in it is allowed to be their own person and really stand out. Whereas in the other one, there are more of them, so they don't have as much screen time as they probably should. Now, this one is pretty action-packed. There are some more dramatic moments, which I think is really cool. And there is a death in this movie, someone very close to Conan. I'm not going to say who. You'll probably figure it out because I already said she in the other movie. And so it's nice to see how this movie has progressed over the past 30 years since it's come out. And it still looks good, even though some of the stuff is like, But all in all, it's still good. It's still a good movie. And actually, it's one of my pop's favorite movies because he really likes Conan, and he used to read the comic books as well. And yeah, it was actually harmless. I didn't know that either until years later. But this is a really good movie, and it fits in with what most people think of when they think of Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, which is action-packed. Which brings me to my number 3, which is The Terminator. That's right. Terminator. Now, I talked about it in my Terminator retrospective. This is a good movie, and it's a good blend of action and a little bit of sci-fi and slasher movie to it. Not really slasher, but more of a sci-fi horror, because you have this unstoppable killer trying to kill one particular person. If you see the movie, you know who I'm talking about. And it's done very well, and the sort of hopelessness and also never say die attitude of Kyle Reese in this movie is one of the main points I like about it. You see in his face as somebody who has been through war, and I really like that about this movie as well. I don't know if I touched on in my Terminator retrospective. But I don't think it's the best Terminator movie. That brings me to number 2, which is Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Now, why do I think Terminator 2 is better? Well, first of all, when you look at the two movies, the villains of those movies, I think, really tell a difference. In the second movie, I think it's actually better. The first movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger is still former Mr. Olympia, jacked up, and it's kind of hard to see how this guy could really blend in human society. So when you get to the second movie and you have this guy who looks like a more regular guy, and you would think that he would be the one trying to stop Arnold Schwarzenegger, but instead it's the other way around. That's what I think works, because he's less assuming, but he's the more technologically advanced, and he is better, I think, at infiltrating human society, which he does for quite a bit because he dresses up as a cop. Nobody, questions him whatsoever, and the fact that he's a shapeshifter really helps him blend in, and only animals like dogs are able to figure out that it's actually not a human being. And also, this movie has more progression for the characters, I think. The Terminator had a good character progression with Sarah Connor, but it was more about her accepting that the future is going to happen. And then in the second one is about her, first of all, she's this paranoid person because she rightfully believes that the world's going to end at almost any moment thanks to cybernetic systems. Also, when she comes towards the end, you see her having a little bit of a spark of hope that the future isn't written in stone, and she even said, there is no future but what we make of it. Also, John Connor in this movie, he starts off as, alright, I want to say, a bit of an asshole, but you see him progress through the movie trying to save his mom and also forming a bond with the Terminator in this movie. And so I think that sort of progression towards the end where he comes to terms with who he is and also having that connection making him a better person. And I really like that. Also, you got to see the Terminator kind of learn and become a little more human. Not as human as I thought he was in the third movie, but definitely a nice progression in this movie. Also, the effects in this movie, this is the early age of CGI, and I was blown away by the CGI in this movie. It was amazing, and it still holds up. It's still done well. I've heard interviews and saying that not all of it is CG, but the fact that you can't tell some of the times when it's CG and when it isn't is a good thing, I think. You see that, oh, maybe that wasn't CG. Maybe that's actually, camera tricks or robots or something. And that's cool. I like that. Not knowing the magic trick of a movie is kind of fun, I think. And also, the fight sequences in this are I think a little bit better because you had two machines going at it. You're able to have this sort of hand-to-hand combat. Not to mention the surprise in the middle when you find out that it is Arnold Schwarzenegger protecting John Connor. It's kind of a cool twist. Not to mention the famous line, there are two famous lines from the Terminator movies. One is, "I'll be back," which everybody does. But the other line they do is, "Come with me if you want to live." And when they do that line, they don't do it as Kyle Reese in the first Terminator. They do it in Arnold Schwarzenegger's voice in the second movie. So it's a lot more memorable, I think. But both movies are great. Check them out. And that's all for... Wait a minute. No, that's not all, is it? No? That was only my number 2. But the Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 aren't my favorite Schwarzenegger movie. What is? Oh, right! Number 1 is Predator. Yes, this movie is awesome. It is awesome. Just like I said, Terminator, and even Terminator 2 is a blend of sci-fi and horror and action. This movie is sci-fi, action, kind of a war drama because they're in a war zone, but it's also a slasher movie because you have the Predator going after this entire group of special forces one at a time and just like a slasher villain. And it's really cool to me because in the Terminator movies, until the second one, you don't really build up the protagonist as somebody who can take on the villain. But in the Predator movies, first you establish these guys as badasses. You know, they go in, take out an entire, you know, guerrilla army in a sense in Guatemala, and then having them getting picked off one by one, it was like, whoa, what is this? Not to mention the Predator himself, because he's played by somebody who is a legit 7-footer, you're able to do in this movie what you could not do in the Terminator movies, which is you're able to out Arnold because since Kevin Peter Hall, who played the Predator, was 7 feet tall, when he picks up Arnold Schwarzenegger and boom, pins him against a tree, and you see his feet are like 6 inches off the ground, and he's still looking down a little bit at him. That was legit. I was like, whoa, this guy's a badass. He just picks him like nothing. And it was so good. The fact that this movie was released in like 1987, and it's still, people still think about this movie too. I know a lot of people who think, oh man, Predator, great movie, man. You're right, it's a good movie. Not to mention, this movie has a couple of memorable lines too. Not all of them from Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it's very memorable. The villain, this one, not really like evil, just a hunter, a predator in a sense. That's why it's named that. But it's not like he's trying to eat them or doing it just because there's some psychological thing wrong with him. He's just doing what any hunter would do. Just deals with his own style to it. Not to mention, people have been, we'll talk about like CG, the fact that I don't even think they didn't have CG, I don't think, in '87 when they made the first Predator movie, and that scene where he just he swings around the tree, you see him real quick, and then he disappears again. That's so cool. And it's so memorable to me. That's why this had to be my number one. Because I watch it whenever I can. It's so cool. And the fact that this movie can hopefully be rebooted again, just like they're trying to reboot, or not really reboot, but give another sequel to the Terminator movies, that just speaks volumes to me. I even did a whole video about what I would like to see from a Predator reboot or sequel. That's my opinion. What do you think? Now I'm going to ask, what's your favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie? Is it one of the ones I listed, or is it one that I didn't even think of? Let me know. So, I don't know what my next video is going to be about. Probably got a couple of top 10s down the line, and probably some movie reviews sometime in the summer, because we got a lot of summer movies coming out. Until then, bye.